I was sitting in the bathtub, fighting off the pain from nerves, when I heard my wife in the next room say to our son, "If he dies, we get the insurance. If he lives, we get debt. Either way, we win." They laughed. My son laughed. I stayed underwater for 40 seconds just to practice what silence felt like. Today, he left me a voicemail. "Please come home. Mom won't eat. She just stares at the wall." I'm typing this out at 3 in the morning with shaky hands and the kind of clarity that only comes when your entire life implodes. Not sure if I'm looking for advice or just need to get this shit out of my system. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. So I, 43M, had back surgery 2 weeks ago. Nothing fancy, just the result of 17 years working construction and one wrong lift that finally did me in. 3 discs, some nerve damage, and enough metal in my spine now that I joke about setting off airport security. The doc says I'll recover, but it's gonna be a long road. You know that feeling when pain meds aren't quite working, but you're not due for another dose for 2 hours? That's where I was yesterday afternoon. Decided to soak in the tub since hot water sometimes helps. Our bathroom has this weird layout. Tub against one wall, then on the other side is our bedroom. And the walls are thin AF, like hear a whisper thin. I was just lying there, eyes closed, trying not to focus on the burning sensation running down my left leg. Sciatica's a bitch. When I heard my wife Heather, 41F, and our son Remington, 16M, in the bedroom. Normally I'd just tune them out, but something in Heather's tone made me listen. She was talking about our finances, medical bills, insurance, normal stuff when your household income gets cut in half because you can't work. But then she said it. She told Rem that they needed to be prepared for either outcome. That if I died, they'd get the life insurance payout, $350,000. And if I lived, we'd be $50,000 in debt even after insurance. And then, I swear this is exactly what she said. If he dies, we get the insurance. If he lives, we get debt. Either way, we win. They laughed. My son fucking laughed. I stayed underwater for 40 seconds after that, just to practice what silence felt like. Just to see if drowning might be preferable to knowing my family sees me as nothing but a potential payday. The worst part? Looking back, the signs were always there. I just refused to see them. 3 months ago, Heather randomly asked about increasing my life insurance. Said her friend at work mentioned everyone should have at least 5x their annual salary. I agreed because it made sense. Remington has been weirdly detached about my surgery. When I came home from the hospital, he asked if I needed anything, then immediately went to his room to game, without waiting for an answer. Bills, accidentally, left on my nightstand. Medical paperwork highlighted with the worst-case scenarios. Heather mentioning her cousin, who died after routine surgery, at least 4 times before my procedure. The hushed conversations that stop when I enter a room. The fake smiles. The way they exchange looks when they think I'm not watching. But you want to know the real kicker? I got out of that bathtub, dried off, dressed myself, took nearly 20 minutes with the pain, and went downstairs like nothing happened. Ate dinner with them, smiled at their jokes, thanked Heather when she handed me my evening meds, told Rem I was proud of his math test score. Just fucking normal. Because what else could I do? Confront them? Start screaming? Demand to know when exactly they started seeing me as a walking corpse with a price tag? After dinner, I sat in the recliner, the only piece of furniture that doesn't make my back scream, and watched some mindless show with them. Heather asked if I was okay because I was quieter than usual. I told her the pain was bad. She nodded sympathetically and suggested I go to bed early. Such concern, much care. Wow, it's so strange how trauma works. You'd think hearing your family basically hope for your death would break you completely. But instead, I feel this strange, icy clarity. Like someone turned down the volume on my emotions and cranked up my brain's processing power. Here's what I know. I can't let them know what I heard. Not yet. I need to protect myself. Financially, legally, emotionally. I've been with Heather for 17 years. 17 fucking years. I changed careers for her, moved states twice, supported her through nursing school, and apparently my only real value to her is my death benefit. My son, who I taught to ride a bike, who I coached in Little League, who I've loved every single day of his life, would rather have a check than a father. So here I am, lying in our guest bedroom, told Heather I needed space to spread out because of my back. I've got my old iPad propped up on my knees, typing this out while they sleep peacefully down the hall, probably dreaming of all the ways they'll spend my death money that isn't coming. I keep replaying that moment underwater, the muffled sensation, the burning in my lungs, the way everything went quiet except for the blood pumping in my ears. It would have been so easy to just stay under, give them what they want. But that's not who I am, and that's not what's going to happen. Instead, I'm making plans. I've got time. At least 8 weeks of recovery before I can even think about going back to work. 8 weeks to figure out exactly how to dismantle the life we've built together without them realizing what's happening. 8 weeks to secure my future, one that doesn't include a wife who sees me as a payday, and a son who laughs at the idea of my death. You know how people say revenge is a dish best served cold? Well, I'm putting mine in the fucking freezer. I've never been the type to post my personal shit online, but I needed to get this out somewhere. I can't sleep, can't eat, can't process how 17 years of marriage led to this moment. How my own flesh and blood could sit there and laugh at the idea of collecting on my life insurance. Tomorrow, I start making calls, talking to people who can help me navigate this, setting things in motion. Tonight, I mourn. Not just for the marriage I thought I had or the son I believed loved me. I mourn for the man I was yesterday morning, the trusting husband, the proud father, because that man died in a bathtub while practicing what silence feels like. Update. First, thanks to everyone who responded to my original post. The support from internet strangers has been more genuine than anything I've felt from my family lately. Kinda fucked up, right? It's been 3 weeks since I heard Heather and Remington laughing about my potential death in that bathtub. 3 weeks of smiling through dinner, accepting help with my meds, and pretending I didn't know they were waiting for me to either die or become a financial burden. But I haven't been idle. You know that feeling when you're playing chess and your opponent doesn't realize you've been setting up your moves 5 turns ahead? That's my life now. Outwardly, broken man recovering from back surgery. Inwardly, dismantling 17 years of marriage with surgical precision. Day 1. After the bathtub incident, I called an old buddy from high school who works in finance. Met him at a coffee shop while Heather thought I was at physical therapy. Asked him hypothetical questions about a friend going through marital troubles. He saw through that in about 2 seconds flat and gave me the real talk I needed. Here's what I've done so far. Opened a new bank account at a completely different bank. My disability checks and savings are now being redirected. Changed all my passwords, email, social media, banking, everything. Heather used to know them all. Used to. Called my life insurance company. Turns out Heather had indeed increased my coverage significantly 3 months ago. With an electronic signature I have zero recollection of providing. Can't prove she forged it, but come on. Reduced coverage back to original amount and changed the beneficiary to my sister. Started documenting everything. Recording conversations on my phone. One-party consent state, checked the laws. Taking photos of bills. Keeping a detailed journal of every interaction. Slowly secured important documents. Birth certificate. Car title. My name only, thank God. Property records for the house we bought together. Tax returns. They're now in a safety deposit box Heather knows nothing about. The physical recovery has been brutal, but it's given me the perfect cover. When you're in legitimate pain, no one questions why you're quiet or withdrawn. No one thinks it's weird that you spend hours on your phone watching YouTube when you're actually transferring funds and researching divorce attorney. The most surreal part of all this? Watching Heather play the devoted wife. She brings me tea, adjusts my pillows, asks if I need anything before she leaves for work. Sometimes her hand lingers on my shoulder, and I wonder if she's checking to see if I'm still breathing or if she's calculating how much more insurance money she'd get if I was just a little more dead. Last week, Remington came into the guest room where I've been sleeping, sat on the edge of the bed with that awkward teenage energy, said he wanted to talk about something important. For a split second, I thought maybe, just maybe, he was going to confess. Tell me he was sorry for what he said, that he didn't mean it. Nope. He wanted to talk about buying a car. The one his friend's older brother is selling for $4,000. A real deal, apparently. I just stared at him. This kid who laughed at the idea of cashing in on my death was now asking me for car money. The absolute balls on this child I raised. I told him we have medical bills. That money's tight right now. That maybe when I'm back at work we can revisit the idea. He had the audacity to look disappointed. To sigh like I was ruining his life. To say that all his friends have cars and he's the only one still getting dropped off at school like a little kid. You know what's worse than hearing someone wish you were dead? Watching them continue to treat you like an ATM after they've wished you were dead. Heather's getting frustrated. I can see it in the tight lines around her mouth. The way she sighs when she thinks I'm not listening. The hushed phone calls to her mother where she complains about the medical bills. About how I'm not recovering as quickly as the doctor said I would. About how difficult everything is. Poor Heather. All this caregiving and not even a dead husband to show for it. The other day, I accidentally left a medical bill on the kitchen counter. The big one, $47,000, most of which insurance will eventually cover, but the initial billing doesn't show that. I watched through the doorway as she found it, the way her shoulders slumped, the way she quickly pulled out her phone to check their joint account balance. Here's the thing about financial abuse. It works both ways. For years, I've been the primary earner, the provider, the one who made sure bills were paid and savings were growing. I handled most of the finances because Heather claimed she wasn't good with numbers. But now I realize she was perfectly happy to let me handle everything as long as the money kept flowing. The money has stopped flowing, and Heather's mask is slipping. Yesterday, I overheard her talking to Remington about postponing a family vacation they'd apparently been planning for June, when I'd be well into recovery but not quite back to normal. A vacation they never mentioned to me. Were they planning to go without me? Or were they hoping I'd be gone by then? One way or another. I found other things too. Searches on Heather's tablet about life insurance payout timeline. And how long after death is life insurance paid? She didn't even bother clearing her history. Why would she? I've never had reason to look before. I got a job offer yesterday. Out of state. Started applying weeks ago when I realized I needed an exit strategy with income attached. It's actually perfect timing. The position doesn't start for 2 months, which lines up with my recovery timeline. The pay is slightly less than I make now, but the cost of living there is lower. And it's 2,000 miles away from Heather and Remington. I haven't said yes yet, but I will. Tomorrow, after I talk to my lawyer one more time. Oh yeah, I have a lawyer now. Met with 3 before I found one who didn't make me feel like just another billing opportunity. She's helped me understand what divorce will look like, what I'm entitled to, what Heather might try to claim. She thinks the bathtub conversation might not hold up in court as proof of anything, but the financial moves Heather has made, especially that life insurance change, raise serious red flags. I've been telling people I'm struggling with depression from the pain. It's the perfect cover for withdrawing from social events, for the weight I've lost, for the hollow look in my eyes that has nothing to do with physical discomfort and everything to do with realizing my family sees me as nothing but a financial calculation. But here's something unexpected. I've actually been reconnecting with people Heather never liked. My cousin who she thought was too crude. My college roommate she claimed was a bad influence. My sister who she always competed with. Turns out, they've all missed me. They've all wondered why I became so distant after marriage. I'm building a support system she knows nothing about. People who will have my back when everything falls apart, and it will fall apart soon. This morning, Remington asked if I could help him with a project for school, something about career day, and wanting to understand more about what I do. In 17 years, he's never once shown interest in my work, never asked questions about construction or building or any of it. I almost laughed in his face. 3 weeks ago, he was chuckling at the idea of cashing in my life insurance. Now he wants to know about my career? But I played along, showed him photos from job sites, explained the process of taking something from blueprint to reality, watched his eyes glaze over with boredom while he pretended to care. What he really wanted came out eventually. His school's father-son camping trip is coming up. 2 nights in the state park, fishing, hiking, bonfire stories, the whole American Dad fantasy package. He wanted to know if I'd be recovered enough to go. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a crack in my resolve. A flicker of the love I used to feel for this boy who has my eyes and his mother's smile. Maybe he did care, in his own self-centered teenage way. Then I remembered the laughter, the cold calculation in his voice when he agreed with Heather that either way, my death or my debt, they'd win. I told him I didn't think my back would be up for sleeping on the ground, that he should see if his uncle could take him instead. The disappointment on his face looked almost genuine. Almost. Last night, I packed a go bag while they were at Remington's basketball game. Just the essentials. Some clothes, important documents I hadn't already secured, medications, the external hard drive with all my evidence. It's hidden in the trunk of my car now, under the spare tire. I'm not running yet, but I'll be ready when the time comes. Today, I'm calling the real estate agent I've been talking to. Our house has gone up in value since we bought it. Housing market's crazy right. She thinks we could get at least $70,000 in equity if we sell. Split down the middle. That's a decent starter fund for my new life. Heather has no idea what's coming. She thinks I'm broken, defeated, struggling just to get through each day of recovery. She has no idea that while I've been lying in this bed, I've been systematically untangling our lives. That every time she hands me a pill or adjusts my pillows, I'm one step closer to disappearing from her life so completely that she'll realize death would have been easier. At least then she'd have closure and insurance money. Instead, she's going to get the slow, painful reality of being abandoned, of watching her financial security disintegrate, of explaining to her friends and family why her husband of 17 years suddenly filed for divorce and moved across the country. Final update. It's been 2 months since my last update. 2 months since I nuked my marriage from orbit. 2 months of rebuilding my life from the smoking crater that used to be my family. And now, Remington's voicemail has me questioning absolutely nothing. Before I get into the voicemail, let me back up to where I left off. I promised you guys an update after the dinner. The infamous Last Supper where I was finally going to confront Heather and Remington with what I knew. Well, it happened, and it went exactly as planned, until it didn't. I ordered her favorite Thai food, set the table with actual matching plates instead of the paper ones we'd been using during my recovery. Even put out candles like it was some kind of celebration. In a way, it was. My personal Independence Day. Heather was suspicious immediately. Asked if it was our anniversary and she'd forgotten. It wasn't. She had forgotten our actual anniversary 3 weeks earlier, but that's beside the point. Remington just slid into his chair and started shoveling pad thai into his face while scrolling TikTok, completely oblivious to the tension. I waited until they were both settled, until Heather had taken her first sip of wine, until Remington had put his phone down to reach for an egg roll. Then I said it. I've accepted a job in Colorado. I start in 2 weeks. I'm going alone. The silence that followed was magnificent, like that moment after you drop something fragile and before it hits the ground. That suspended animation of knowing something is about to shatter, but it hasn't quite happened yet. Heather recovered first, asked what I was talking about, if this was some kind of joke, if the pain meds were making me confused. I just smiled and took another bite of my food, told her I wasn't confused at all, that I'd been planning this move for weeks, that the house was going on the market next Tuesday, that I'd already packed most of my important stuff. Remington finally looked up from his phone, actually put it down completely, asked if we were all moved, or just me. Just me, I told him. Just me. That's when Heather started crying. Not the pretty TV drama tears that slide gracefully down cheeks. The ugly, snotty, mascara everywhere kind that happen when your entire world implodes over Thai food on a Thursday night. She asked why. Said we could work through whatever was bothering me. Said she'd been by my side through the surgery, through recovery, through everything. And that's when I told them. Every single word I'd heard in that bathtub. Their laughter, their calculations, their cold analysis of my value, dead or alive. You know how people say they've watched the blood drain from someone's face? I always thought that was just a saying. But Heather went so pale so fast I thought she might pass out. And Remington just froze with his chopsticks halfway to his mouth, a noodle dangling pathetically. Heather tried to deny it, said I misheard, said it was a joke, said I was taking things out of context. So I pulled out my phone and played the audio I'd been collecting for weeks. Not from the bathtub, I didn't have that, but from after. A conversation where she told her sister how worried she was about money if my recovery took longer than expected, how the insurance would have been so much simpler, how she sometimes wondered if she'd made the wrong choice staying with me all these years. Then I showed them screenshots, the bank accounts I'd separated, the life insurance policy with my sister as the new beneficiary, the lease I'd signed on an apartment in Colorado, the one-way U-Haul rental confirmation. Remington started crying then, actually crying. Said he didn't mean it, said he was just agreeing with his mom. Said he didn't want me to die. Too little, too late, kid. Heather switched tactics, went from denial to rage in about 3 seconds flat, started screaming about how I couldn't do this, how I was destroying our family, how I'd regret this, how she'd make me pay. I just laughed. Actually, laughed. Told her she'd already made me pay. For 17 years. And I was done. I moved out the next day. Didn't even stay for the fallout. Had a buddy come over to help load my stuff while Heather was at work and Remington was at school. Left my keys and wedding ring on the kitchen counter. Drove to a hotel 30 miles away and stayed there until my apartment in Colorado was ready. The divorce papers were delivered to her at work a week later. That was particularly satisfying to imagine. She tried to fight it, of course. Tried to claim I was abandoning her and Remington. Tried to go after my 401k, my savings, everything. But my lawyer was prepared. The evidence of her searching for info about my life insurance payout was particularly damning in the eyes of the court. I won't bore you with the legal details, but the TLDR version is, she got way less than she expected. The house had to be sold to settle our debts. My 401k stayed mine. Joint savings got split 50/50ths, but there wasn't much left there anyway after I'd moved most of my personal savings to my new account. Remington was the real casualty in all this, not financially. I set up a separate account for his college fund that Heather can't touch, but emotional. He sent me dozens of texts, some angry, some pleading, some just sad. I didn't respond to any of them until the voicemail. I've been in Colorado for almost 2 months now. My back is finally healing properly. The new job is good. Less physical strain, decent pay, normal coworkers who don't secretly wish I was dead for financial gain. I've got a small apartment with a view of the mountains. I'm not happy exactly, but I'm free, and that counts for something. Then yesterday, while I was grocery shopping, my phone buzzed. Remington's name on the screen. I almost declined it out of habit, but something made me let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, I listened to it in the frozen food aisle, standing in front of the ice cream section with a pint of Rocky Road melting in my hand. Please come home. Mom won't eat. She just stares at the wall. 8 words. His voice cracked on please. He sounded younger than 16. Sounded like the little boy who used to beg me to check under his bed for monsters. For a split second, I felt it. That pull, that instinct to protect that I'd spent 17 years cultivating. To drop everything and rush back to fix what was broken. But then I remembered the laughter. When I got home from the store, I sat on my balcony and called my sister, told her about the voicemail, asked her what she'd heard from mutual friends back home. Turns out, Heather's breakdown isn't exactly a surprise. The house sold for less than we hoped. She had to downsize to a two-bedroom apartment, had to get a second job to cover expenses, had to face everyone who'd known us as the perfect couple and explain why her husband suddenly left and moved across the country. She's telling people I had a mental breakdown after my surgery, that the pain meds affected my brain, that I became paranoid and delusional. Some believe her, some don't. My sister certainly doesn't. After we hung up, I sat there watching the sunset over mountains I'm still getting used to. Thought about Remington's voice, about Heather staring at the wall, about the mess I'd left behind. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no guilt, just nothing. Is that normal? To work so hard for revenge and then feel empty when you get it? Maybe it's because revenge wasn't actually my goal. Survival was. Self-preservation, escape. I called Remington back this morning, not right away. I waited until I knew he'd be at school, left a voicemail of my own. I told him I wasn't coming back, that his mother would either pull herself together or she wouldn't, but that wasn't my responsibility anymore. That actions have consequences, that he was old enough to understand that wishing death on someone, even jokingly, isn't something you come back from. But I also told him that when he turns 18, if he wants to visit me in Colorado, my door is open, that I'd help him with college if he decided to go, that I hadn't stopped loving him, even if I couldn't forgive him yet. Is that weak? Maybe. But he's still my son, even if he's also the kid who laughed at the idea of cashing in on my death. So here we are, my final update, because after this, there's nothing left to tell. Just a man in his 40s starting over in a new state, just a broken family back home, just the ordinary aftermath of discovering your loved ones valued you more as a corpse than as a husband and father. Heather will eventually pull herself together. She's always been resilient, more resilient than me in many ways. She'll find someone new, tell them I was the villain. Maybe she'll even believe it herself eventually. Remington will grow up. Maybe he'll come find me one day, maybe he won't. Either way, he'll have learned something about consequences that most people don't learn until much later in life. And me? I'm focusing on my back exercises, on making my apartment feel like home, on figuring out who Brian is when he's not defined by being Heather's husband or Remington's father. I joined a local hiking group on Meetup, went out for beers with some coworkers last weekend, downloaded a dating app but haven't opened it yet. Baby steps. Sometimes at night I still think about that moment in the bathtub, the water closing over my face, the muffled sounds, the burning in my lungs as I counted to 40. But I'm not practicing for silence anymore. I'm practicing for a new kind of noise. My life, my terms.